Beneath the North Atlantic's restless skin lies a city of iron and memory, a ship whose name folded into the language of catastrophe. Titanic, the hull, once a temple of Edwardian ambition and social choreography, now reclines under the water. Like a ruined cathedral, its bow plunged into silt, its stern split and collapsed, its cabins emptied of gossip. To stand at the wreck in imagination is to stand in two times at once the bright, whistle-crisped afternoon of April 10th, 1912, when it left port under band music and farewells and the long blue pressure of years that have remade it. Titanic was not merely a vessel, it was a counterpane of class and desire. On her decks, the wealthy reclined beneath gaslits and polished mahogany, while farther below, men and women of modest means clustered in close cabins and shared a different map of hope. That stratified geometry of space carried with it the weight of fatal choices. When the ship met the iceberg, it was as if a single seam had been pulled through that map, unraveling the deliberate separations that had governed life aboard. The consequences were measured in gestures. Who could climb a gangway? Who could find a lifeboat? Who could cry in private? What remains now are fragments, a shoe, a teacup, a nameplate, a bathtub in silt. Each artifact is a punctuation mark. In someone's life, a quiet domestic sign that insists the catastrophe had faces and routines and music. These objects insist upon a chorus. When remotely operated vehicles first returned images of the wreck, the world saw not only a technical ruin, but a palimpsest of private lives pressed into cold metal, and a new way of reading loss through objects that refuse to be anonymous. The wreck is a theorem of decay. Steel, which once promised permanence, yields to chemistry. Salt, oxygen, and microbes compose a slow, relentless grammar of transformation. Bacteria that feasts on iron-knit orange. Filigrees across bulkheads, turning corridors into bone-like crusts. Whole staircases crumble into clouds of sediment when disturbed. Wallpaper becomes mineral ghosts. Even as the ship breaks down, life forms colonize its bones. Tunicates and anemones carpet the decks and portholes. Schools of fish thread through collapsed cabins as if performing a kind of ritual. There is a theatricality to the wreck's images, the grand staircase, that ineffable symbol of Titanic's opulence, now a mottled frame through which fish drift like extras in a submerged play. Photographs show metal between the camera's beam and the dark. Stillness is deceptive. Currents move like breath around the wreck, and sediment, disturbed by a propeller or a curious arm, billows like smoke. The interplay of light and shadow, the scale of broken interiors, turns ruin into an aesthetic object that the camera both documents and composes. Memory itself flexes and mutates around Titanic. For the families of survivors and the lost, the wreck is an aching locus of grief. For historians, it is a primary text, a material companion to testimony and ledger. Popular imagination layers myth upon it. The ship is alternately portrayed as hubris incarnate, as a cautionary tale about technology, and as an emblem of heroism and failure. Those interpretations influence what is hunted on the seabed and what is left to tide and time. Notably, the wreck sits at a geopolitical and legal crossroads. It rests beyond any single nation's shore in international waters that complicate authority and stewardship. Researchers must navigate permits and protocols. Every expedition carries the dual burden of scientific curiosity and public expectation. Television follows salvage crews. Spectacle can overshadow scholarship. Yet the best expeditions have combined rigorous conservation science with a sobriety about what should be recovered, preserved, or recorded in situ. There is an intimacy to ruins that formal histories often miss. The wreck speaks in smudges and silences. In one corner, a pocket watch frozen at a minute past becomes both a tragic time stamp and a symbol of a moment's suspension. A photograph album, its pages fused together by salt, hints at weddings and sea journeys now impossible to verify. These traces invite speculation, but also demand humility. The past does not yield a tidy archive of causes. It offers instead a mosaic of human habits and accidents, and the occasional heartbreaking detail. The moral complexities of Titanic's continuing presence weigh on contemporary conservationists. Deep-sea technologies allow unprecedented access, but access brings choices. Each artifact removed from the sea will inevitably lose the rhythm of its watery environment. Each left behind continues to change, becoming more fragile with every year. Many scholars advocate for in situ preservation, arguing that the site, like any grave, deserves a measure of inviolability. Others believe recovery, followed by careful conservation and ethical display, can honor lives by making them tangible. To the public, in contexts that teach and do not merely titillate, beyond debates and data, Titanic endures as a kind of mirror. When we look down upon it, we see the technologies that built it and the social orders it carried. But we also see ourselves, our capacity for creation, and our tendency toward error. The wreck is a teacher with an uncompromising voice. Structures fail, plans misread their margins, and the sea accepts neither apology nor repair. Yet the wreck also harbors tenderness among the exposed corridors and collapsed suites. Small artifacts retain human scale,